One of my subscribers asked me to differentiate faith versus magical thinking. And I thought that was a great idea. So, first of all, why the difference? Why do we have to make the difference? Because my ministry is to people in difficult relationships. So that's what we're dealing with. People in difficult relationships or difficult life circumstances often look for a simple solution. They're in pain and they're looking for a way out of their pain. And when we are in pain, often God wants us to go, not often, He wants us to go to Him, and He wants us to come to Him and pray and ask Him for help and depend on Him and trust Him. That's a given. The whole Bible talks about that. But at the same time, He wants us to use wisdom and to make really good and right decisions using common sense and taking into consideration that we need to take a stand for what is right and that we need to speak truth and all the principles that I teach, and that we have a right to set boundaries to protect ourselves. Maybe not just a right, but a responsibility to set boundaries to protect ourselves and to say no to things that are wrong and things that are not okay. So we have a tendency, though, to want to believe that there's going to be a simple solution, that's going to be a fix. And sometimes in difficult relationships, that gives way to what is magical thinking. Magical thinking thinks if I just trust and wait and hope, it'll just happen and everything will be okay. And I won't have to do any of this tough stuff. I won't have to set boundaries, and I won't have to speak the truth, and I won't have to make a decision as to whether or not I have to get a divorce and leave this person or separate and give this person an ultimatum. I won't have to confront my child and think about kicking my kid out of the house or saying no to somebody who's going to be very upset with me. I just won't have to. I'll just have this thinking that it's just going to go away. It doesn't deal with the tough questions and the tough choices. It instead uses faith as an excuse to not do the hard work, to not do the things that have to do with standing up for what is right and doing the things that we have a responsibility to do in our difficult relationships, but they're not easy and they're not fun. So here is the difference. Faith is in God. Always need to have faith in God. But magical thinking is in specific outcomes. So faith will say in a circumstance, my faith is in God, not in specific outcomes. So I'm in this situation going to hang on to God and trust God and believe in God no matter what happens, no matter what the outcome is. But magical thinking is, oh, it's going to all be better. It's going to all be fine. Everything's going to be great. Faith wants God's will. Magical thinking wants your will. So in faith, I'm saying, God, whatever's your will in this marriage, whatever your will in my life, whatever happens, I will trust you. I'll trust that you're working your will out in this circumstance. But magical thinking is my will. My will is this marriage works. My will is that I don't have to make a hard decision and kick my kid out of the house. My will is that my child gets help for that drug situation. My will is that my parent changes and my parent doesn't continue to act this way or isn't going to continue abusing me or abusing my spouse or abusing my child. So the next one is faith trusts God no matter what happens. Magical thinking is disappointed when things don't happen like you want them to go, like you believe or imagine they'll happen. So faith says, God, no matter what, it's like Job, though you slay me, I will trust you. Doesn't matter. I am there. But magical thinking is discouraged and maybe even It's a faith crisis when things don't happen like you expect them to happen. It's like, God disappointed me. God let me down. God didn't do what I believed that he was going to do or what he told me he was going to do. It can literally become a crisis. Faith knows that God doesn't violate people's free will. Magical thinking believes that God's going to violate a person's free will to make things happen the way you want. So faith recognizes, okay, God has my good in mind, and God doesn't want this situation maybe to happen, but God isn't going to violate this person's free will. This person still has choice. So I don't have any guarantee that things are going to go like I believe that they're going to go, or that I have the faith to believe they might, God, if you can save this marriage. But magical thinking is, yeah, God, you're going to change my husband's heart. You're going to change my kid's drug addiction. You're just going to take it away. You're going to change this person's mind, and you're going to take away all of these things that are hindering our relationship. And again, when that doesn't happen, you're disillusioned because you're like, why didn't God do what I believed he was going to do? Why didn't God make my husband change? I get letters like that all the time, emails from people. I've been praying for 20 years that God would change my spouse's heart, and now my spouse is leaving me. Why did God not answer my prayers? Well, he did, but magical thinking is that God's going to force this person to change, and God doesn't do that. He doesn't force somebody to change. He allows them to make choices, and unfortunately, we get caught in the pathway of that person's choices. Faith moves forward doing your part. Magical thinking waits and doesn't do your part. So it's kind of like a cop out. It's like, okay, I'm just going to believe that God's going to fix this. And in the meantime, I'm not going to do any of this tough stuff. I'm not going to set boundaries. I'm not going to speak truth. I'm not going to change myself. I'm not going to do this stuff that I need to do in order to do my part to deal with this difficult situation. Now, here are some examples. Faith would trust God to work in your difficult relationship, but you know that it's not going to happen unless the other person is open to it. Magical thinking is convinced that the other person will change. So you're just going to keep tolerating the mistreatment and not set boundaries or speak the truth to protect yourself. Faith trusts that God could heal your marriage, could help heal your marriage. But since your spouse has filed for divorce, you recognize that your spouse is going forward with a divorce. So you get an attorney to protect your rights and stand up for your rights. But magical thinking believes God's going to heal my marriage. And so you don't get an attorney and you don't stand up for your rights. And your spouse gets to walk away with everything because you didn't stand for yourself, because your magical thinking just believed that everything was going to be better. Faith trusts God to work in the addict's life, but you still do everything that you can to not enable, to speak the truth in love, to take care of yourself, to make plans for yourself to live your life if the addict doesn't change or isn't changing or never changes. But magical thinking believes that the addict is going to change. So you put your life on hold, waiting for the change to come, and you continue to enable because you just think that everything's going to magically be better, especially if you're loving and you're just waiting for it to instantly change. Faith trusts God to heal your sickness, but still goes to the doctor to get the treatment. But magical thinking believes that God's going to heal your illness and does not go to the doctor. So basically waits for that instant healing, but doesn't do your part in making sure that you're getting proper treatment. So I think at this point, you can kind of see the difference. We want to have faith, but we don't want to have magical thinking. So at this point, it would be kind of give it a little bit of thought. Do you tend towards faith, or do you tend towards magical thinking in your difficult relationships, in your difficult circumstances? You can tell at this point which one is the healthiest. And scripturally, basically, we are commanded to have faith. We know that. But magical thinking gets us in trouble. It will get us very disillusioned with God. It will actually increase the possibility that things will not turn out like we want them to, because we're not doing our part in those difficult relationships. So I hope this has helped you to contrast the difference between faith and magical thinking. And I hope that you take some time, if you're not familiar with my materials and my studies and my books, to go to changemyrelationship.com. And you would really enjoy my book, Change My Relationship, 365 Daily Devotions for Christians in Difficult Relationships. This will help you with magical thinking versus faith, on top of many, many more things. So God bless you, and thank you for watching.